Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Jenny, the LDS Mission Coach, and you are listening to the LDS Mission Podcast, episode number 13, Tips for Times of Transition. I'm Jenny, the LDS Mission Coach, and whether you are preparing to serve a mission, currently serving, a return missionary, or a missionary mama like me, I created this podcast just for you. Are you searching for epic confidence? Ready to love yourself and to learn the how of doing hard things? Then let's go. I will help you step powerfully into your potential and never question your purpose again. It's time to embrace yourself, embrace your mission, embrace your life, and embrace what's next. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited to be with you today. Thanks for joining me. You know, the best way that I can get more help out to more missionaries and preparing missionaries and return missionaries is if you tell your friends about this podcast. So if you could do me a favor and just take a screenshot of the podcast that you're listening to right now or a favorite episode of yours and just share it on social media. It also helps a ton for me to get the word out if you can follow this podcast and leave me a review if you like what you're hearing. That would be awesome. I want to help as many missionaries as I can, as many missionary families as I can. I want to get a whole bunch of help out there to more and more and more of you because this is what I'm passionate about. This is what I love doing. Had an amazing weekend last weekend helping my big boys, my oldest two sons, move back to Provo. So they are headed there, started school this week. Man, moving and starting college is a big job. There was packing the cars and unpacking the cars and then packing the cars again with some different items and then unpacking those cars and then packing the cars with groceries and then unpacking those groceries. It doesn't help that my son that just got home from his mission tore 3 ligaments in his ankle. Poor guy. He's on crutches for his freshman year post-mission of BYU. So that made everything even more fun and challenging. But it was an awesome time. I just loved being there, and my son and his new wife are also getting settled down there in Provo. It's just a great time. Fall's kind of fun to have these new beginnings and lots of things happening. But what also comes along with all of the fun new things happening, my other kids also started school last week, is there are a lot of people going through a lot of transitions. So that's what we're going to talk about today. You know, transitions can be downright hard. Our brains don't like change at all. And so it feels really uncomfortable to our brains who are really like things to stay the same. It likes to conserve energy. It wants us never to do anything different again. Change and transition can feel super uncomfortable. So that is what I want to share with you today, is some tips that you can use during these times of transition. Now, when I think of transitions, there's a few categories that I put them into, and you might think of a few others. I'm sure there are more, but I put them into categories like we have our daily transitions, we have kind of recurring transitions that happen in our lives, and we have big life transitions. The daily transitions, I kind of think of those are little transitions that occur throughout the day or week. Some of these can even be challenging to move from one activity to another. I find this almost every day when I get done with working and putting out content and doing all the things that I'm trying to help out with in helping you guys. Every day when I'm done with that and it's time to go pick up my kids from school, that's a hard transition for me. Our brains would much rather keep doing what they're doing. So some other daily transitions might be changing to schoolwork after exercise in the morning, or getting motivated after your lunch break, or maybe leaving some like me time or alone time to go hang out with roommates, or transitioning from the weekend to back to a work week or a school week. We all know this, right? Like Mondays have had a bad rap for a long time. It's fine, but the reason that these daily transitions are challenging is because our brain likes the state that it's in rather than changing to a new state of being. Okay, so recurring transitions, I picture happening fairly often, but they definitely happen a little more spaced out. So things like coming home from a vacation, or the starting of a new semester, like many of you are doing, like a mission transfer. We know those are coming about every 6 weeks. Maybe living with a new roommate. My daughter just went through a little transition because she had a cold. And so then we've got that whole transition after the cold where we got to get back to normal life with, kind of the cough and the sniffles still going on. And it can be really challenging. And our brains are just like, no, thank you. I don't like this transition. Some of the life transitions that we go through typically occur very infrequently, sometimes only once or twice in a lifetime. Some of these we've had happen in my own family, like going on or coming home from a mission. There's a lot of that going on right now. I find that there's tons of turnover with missionaries coming and going right before a semester starts. Another one might be getting married. We also had this happen in my family this summer. My son and my new daughter-in-law are newly married. This is a big life transition. Maybe you're graduating from school this year, so that might be a transition, or maybe you've just graduated from high school. Maybe you're changing a career. I know a couple college students who were at one university and then they decided to transfer to another university. So there's a lot of life transitions that also happen. Further along in your life, it would be having a new baby. Like the list can go on and on, right? And this whole situation with the coronavirus and with COVID going on, there has been much more required of our brains to make sense of these transitions. And they're not comfy. So I definitely want to give you some tips to deal with this. So the number one tip that I have for you during times of transition, and it doesn't matter if it's a daily transition or this reoccurring transition or a life transition, is I want you to give yourself space to feel. Now, I've said several times over and over so far in this podcast that transitions are uncomfortable. I think of uncomfortable as kind of an umbrella for a lot of other emotions we might be feeling. Overwhelm, stress, anxiety, uncertainty, worry. These are a few emotions that might kind of all be clumped together under the umbrella of feeling discomfort. So I want you to allow yourself all of the space that you need to feel however you need to feel. If you're going into a new transfer, it's okay to be a little bit nervous or to be a little bit worried. Don't tell yourself you shouldn't be nervous or you shouldn't be worried. Instead, tell yourself, of course I feel this way. This is a transition. My brain's kind of freaking out a little bit and it's fine. And I'm going to allow myself to feel whatever I need to. Because do you know what happens when we push away our emotions? They just get stronger. Those emotions that aren't as fun to feel, if we don't just let ourselves feel them, they will come back around. And they'll come back around with more intensity and more fury. So just feel them. Give yourself so much space to feel them. Now, the other thing about this, giving yourself space to feel, is if you can, try to feel your emotions instead of avoiding them or muting them. So your brain will want to distract you. It will want to seek comfort in other places. It will kind of want to numb all of the uncomfortable emotions. It will want to binge Netflix or scroll on your phone or grab a pint of ice cream. Your brain wants you to be distracted so you don't have to feel those feelings. But when you're giving yourself space to feel, try using coping strategies that are productive, that keep you working towards whatever it is you're trying to achieve. Seek coping strategies that help you process the discomfort and all of those emotions rather than numb them. Okay, so this might look like going for a walk or having a conversation with a friend. Basically, anything that allows you to sit with your emotions, make space for them instead of numbing them. Make sense? Never tell yourself, I shouldn't be feeling this. You always should. And we just know it's your brain. So whatever you're feeling is fine. New transfer, going to your original assignment, new semester, getting off a work shift, whatever it is, it's going to be a little uncomfy and it's fine. Number 2 tip I have for you, make a plan. So what I mean by this is sometimes it's really helpful for our brain to make a plan ahead of time of what we might be thinking and what we might be feeling. So we can think of this before the transitional time even occurs. So for instance, with me going to pick my kids up from school, I can think something like, I'm going to be thinking, this is a little overwhelming, this feels super uncomfortable, and then I'm going to feel some feelings. And I can think about that ahead of time and just kind of prepare my brain. If I want to, I can also play with some ideas about how I might want to think about that transitional time instead. I can think thoughts like, this is going to be a little uncomfy, but it's okay. Like, I'm happy to see my kids. Or let's say, because it's a new semester, you're headed into a new class that you finally got added to, you were on the wait list, and so it's kind of a transition into this new class, and your brain's kind of freaking out because it won't know what to expect, but we can think about that ahead of time. We can make a plan. We can think, I'll probably be thinking something like, this class seems really overwhelming, or I don't know these people. And I might be feeling overwhelmed, or I might be feeling nervous, or I might be feeling worried. And if we just can kind of show our brains ahead of time what we might be thinking and feeling, we've made a plan. We've given our brain a little sneak peek at what to expect. And so it won't feel as uncomfortable. When the worry or the overwhelm comes around during that transitional time, we'll be like, oh yeah, I knew it was going to be like this, and it's okay. So we think about it ahead of time, what we're going to be thinking and feeling, and then we plan what our next step is going to be. So we're going to go to the class. We're going to think thoughts like, oh, this is going to be a really hard class. And then we're going to feel overwhelmed because of that thought. But then what is our next step? What are we going to do after that? Do we want to keep thinking that same thought and feeling overwhelmed? Or maybe we want to think something else. Like when we're in that space, maybe we want to redirect our brain to a thought like, it's okay that I've never been in this class before. I'm going to totally figure it out. And then we might feel something different. Now, don't buy into your brain when you're making this plan, when it says, I don't know what I'm going to think or feel. I don't know what I'm going to do next. Just make a plan. It can maybe change, and it might once you get there, but that's totally fine. Just tell yourself, This is probably what's going to happen. Give your brain a little sneak peek of what that might look like and then what you might want to think and feel next. The third tip I have for you for times of transition is to let go of timelines. There's no set amount of time, work, or effort needed or expected to successfully navigate a transition. Sometimes we put timelines on stuff like this, and I'm guilty of this too. I'll tell my kids, after 2 weeks of high school, you'll totally have the groove of it. Or after 2 months of being home from the mission, you'll totally be in a groove. You'll be through that transition. Or I'm not sure what they say about being newly married, but maybe after a year of being married, you'll be totally in the groove. It feels like a long time. But I don't want you to set timelines on these transitions of when you should be through them and when the discomfort should go away. There's no set amount of time. However long it takes you is how long it's supposed to take. If you've been home from your mission for a year and you're still trying to figure it out and it still feels a little uncomfortable to your brain, that's okay. Make space for that too and be willing to sit with the discomfort for as long as necessary, which goes back to tip number 1, right? To make space for how you're feeling. But let's not put a timeline on it. That only puts more pressure on yourself. And when we put a timeline on it, if we've gone past that timeline, then we start to wonder, what's wrong? What's wrong with me? Let's think about a new transfer. Maybe you decide to give yourself a week or 2 to get in a groove with a new companion in a new area with a new transfer. But what happens then if that time comes and goes and you're still not feeling in a groove? It just makes more problems, not less. What I would suggest you do is simply say, I guess this transition time is going to take a little bit longer than I thought. I want to dive just a little bit deeper into why transitions are so difficult. It's because our brain loves patterns. And in order to conserve energy, our brains like to do the same thing over and over and over again. And hopping to a new course of action or a new way of thinking or a new set of feelings is tough. Our brains don't like it. I like to think of this analogy of a hiking trail. And last year when all of my family was COVID quarantined, we actually did have COVID last summer, but a lot of the world was kind of quarantined, right, at home. We started a tradition of being a hiking family. And if any of my family is listening to this right now, they will know, we use that term pretty loosely. We call ourselves a hiking family, but most of the time that just means a walking family, more like walking on the green belt or doing a nice nature walk. But we do feel pretty proud of ourselves, but I would not classify us as a hardcore hiking family, so that's really funny. But thinking about hiking, I came up with this analogy about our brains. And I've actually hiked some pretty great trails in my lifetime. We've taken the kids to Hawaii a couple times. We like to kind of go hike to waterfalls and stuff like that. The difficulty of hikes that I've experienced definitely ranges quite a bit. And the level of care that is taken on each of those hiking paths also varies quite a bit. Some hiking paths are very clear and well maintained, and sometimes my family and I have been on a trail that is actually paved, like on the Greenbelt. Other times I've hiked a path that people have traveled on, but it is not as well maintained. And then other times, my family and I have felt like we were blazing our own trail, like in Hawaii, to get to those waterfalls up over boulders and stuff like that, to go swim in a water hole somewhere. So think of it like this with your brain. Your brain likes the clear, maintained, well-beaten, and often paved path. If it's a paved path, it's even better. So what I kind of like to think about actually is what that trail, we just did a really awesome one on the Oregon coast this summer too, but what that trail looks like or looked like the first time someone hiked it. It probably looked very overgrown. Someone had to chart a new course. Someone had to decide how to create the switchbacks and where to take the switchbacks and where to kind of bring the trail out kind of to the edge so that we could overlook the entire ocean. Someone had to do all of that. And then it's a series of more and more and more people traveling that same path, as well as other, I'm guessing, forest rangers and such that keep that trail well maintained. And then you think of a trail that then becomes like a service road or something like that, and then eventually becomes paved. Like even if we thought about like the Oregon Trail, the first time that one was traveled, it was probably crazy town, and they were forging their own path and clearing debris all of the time. It was very challenging. The same is true for your brain. When you go to forge a new path during these transitions, whether it's a new transfer, a new semester, a new marriage, a new class, a new friendship, whatever it is, you are blazing a new trail. Just consider for a minute that this trail making, of blazing a new trail, of creating new trails in your brain, of new patterns, going through this transition, is going to take some time. A new trail, a new well-maintained, easily travelable trail does not just pop up overnight. So please keep in mind these 3 tools. You're going to need these tools during these times of transition. Number 1, give yourself space to feel whatever it is. Number 2, make a plan ahead. Think ahead about what you might be thinking during that transition and what you might be feeling, and then what you want to think and feel and do next. And then number 3, let go of timelines. There's no specific time or amount of time that it should take you to move through those uncomfy feelings that we all experience every single day in transitions, even in those transitions that occur more often, like starting a new semester or living with a new roommate or a transfer, or even in life transitions, those big life transitions like coming home from a mission. It takes time to create a well-beaten and easily traveled path, and quite a bit of work. And I don't mean the kind of work that means like you're going to have to slave or just pull your hair out, but the kind of work that is allowing your feelings, making those plans, and continuing to take steps forward without a timeline. Transitions, even though they're super uncomfortable, are a part of our experience on this earth. If we never had transitions, that means we'd always be doing the same thing forever, and that would be boring. So yay for transitions. We have them day in and day out and year in and year out. You're going to be blazing some new trails over the next little bit, and that is amazing. Knowing and understanding and using these 3 tools will hopefully allow you to have the most compassion for yourself during these transitional times. To not just walk these paths and hike these trails and try to get to the end, but will help you experience more joy and fulfillment and contentment all along the way. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast today. If you want to learn more about what I do, you can go to jennydildine.com or just come hang out with me on Instagram at jenny.theldsmissioncoach. And Jenny is spelled with an I-E. Remember, no matter which part of the mission experience that you are involved in, just know that Jenny, the LDS Mission Coach, is thinking about you every single day.